They were decadent, over the top, and soaked in butter. The meals of moguls, movie stars, and the ultra-wealthy in a golden decade. Now they've disappeared from the table and from memory. What did the rich really eat in the 70s? And why does no one serve it anymore?
You might expect a rock star like Mick Jagger to favor champagne and oysters, but no. His favorite post-show snack? A crispy bacon sandwich. British to his core, Mick liked his sandwiches with white bread, a generous layer of smoky back bacon, and a touch of HP sauce. On tour, his team often had to scout out local butchers to get it just right. Even when health fads swept through the music industry, Jagger stuck with this savory classic, though he'd occasionally ask for it grilled or served with avocado in later years. To him, the bacon sandwich was comfort food, warm, salty, satisfying, and nostalgic. It reminded him of his London roots and hungry early years with the Stones. He'd eat it with a grin, shoes off, sweat still fresh from the stage. For all her on-screen glamour and slapstick brilliance, Lucille Ball craved one humble comfort food her entire life: tomato soup with crushed saltine crackers. Even during her I Love Lucy heyday, she asked studio kitchens to keep cans of Campbell's tomato soup on hand. Her daughter later shared that Lucille ate it as a child and never tired of its warm, tangy simplicity. Sometimes she added milk to make it creamy, but mostly she preferred it straight, hot, and loaded with saltines crumbled in right before the first spoonful. When the world expected steak and caviar from one of the biggest stars on TV, Lucy wanted soup that reminded her of childhood and quiet evenings in Jamestown. It wasn't about impressing anyone. It was about feeling safe. In the world of fast-paced fame, tomato soup was her slow moment. A pause, a smile, a bite of nostalgia that never went out of style, just like the redhead who made America laugh.
While she dazzled the world with her voice, Whitney Houston's ultimate comfort was a plate of crispy fried chicken and creamy mac cheese. Raised in New Jersey by a gospel-singing family, Whitney's Sundays were filled with food, faith, and soul. This meal, golden, juicy chicken and rich baked mac, was more than tradition. It was her reset. Even as she climbed to global fame, she never lost touch with the dishes that grounded her. Friends and chefs say she'd request it backstage or during long rehearsals, craving the warmth of home cooking when life spun too fast. She liked her mac cheesy but not greasy, with a crisp top layer, and her chicken seasoned and fried Southern style. For Whitney, this wasn't indulgence. It was nourishment for the soul. A return to roots, to choir voices, family hugs, and Sunday joy.
Through the spotlight, the studio contracts, and the storms of fame, Judy Garland always returned to one simple comfort: buttered egg noodles. No sauces, no spices, just tender noodles tossed with a pat of melted butter and a pinch of salt. As a child star under constant pressure, Judy often found little moments of peace in this plain, soothing dish. Her daughters later shared that even at the height of her career, she'd ask for it backstage or in her dressing room. It was her way of pressing pause, an edible lullaby after hours of singing, acting, or interviews. Buttered noodles may seem basic, but to Judy they were familiar and safe, especially when so much of her life wasn't. They were the taste of childhood, of home, of calm. In a world that demanded spectacle, she clung to this quiet bowl of simplicity. Sometimes the softest things carry the loudest echoes of love. Coming up, a Wild West icon's frontier favorite, a soul singer's spicy snack, and a prince whose palate surprised the palace chefs. Elegant and deeply human, Princess Diana adored traditional British desserts, especially bread and butter pudding. This warm, custard-soaked dish made from layers of sliced bread, dried fruit, cream, and eggs was her ultimate comfort food, especially during her early royal years. While dining options at Kensington Palace were endless, Diana preferred this humble dessert, rich, golden, and finished with a dusting of sugar on top. Palace chefs noted she would request it regularly, often paired with a simple vanilla sauce or eaten alone with a cup of tea. It wasn't about indulgence, it was about warmth, nostalgia, and a taste of childhood simplicity. Even after her divorce, Diana was known to prepare a version of it herself when cooking for Prince William and Harry. The recipe lives on in British kitchens and hearts. For someone who carried immense public pressure, this cozy pudding offered quiet joy.
In a life full of headlines, it was her private spoonful of peace. Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin had no shame in loving her chili cheese fries. Messy, spicy, and unapologetically delicious. During tours, she'd often stop at drive-ins or diners to grab a plate piled high with crispy fries, meaty chili, and bubbling cheese. Sometimes with onions, sometimes with jalapenos, always with attitude. Aretha believed food should have flavor and soul, just like her music. Even as she followed strict vocal care routines, she made room for indulgence now and then. And this dish was her top pick. Her team remembers her enjoying it backstage or after particularly powerful performances, still in sequins, fork in hand. It wasn't health food, but it was heart food. Aretha knew what she liked and didn't apologize for it. Chili cheese fries weren't just a craving, they were a celebration. A moment to say, I earned this. Because when you pour your soul into every note, sometimes the only thing that hits the same note is comfort food served hot and loud. Despite a lifetime spent on the road and under stage lights, Willie Nelson has always had a simple sweet tooth, especially for chocolate chip cookies. Fresh, chewy, and sometimes homemade by friends or family, these cookies were his treat of choice, whether recording,
Relaxing, or rolling through Texas in his tour bus. Nelson's crew used to joke that cookies were his pre-show calm down ritual. One cookie, one joint, and he was stage ready. Unlike gourmet desserts or layered cakes, chocolate chip cookies offered comfort and consistency, something he valued in a whirlwind life. Willie once said he liked them soft in the center, warm from the oven, and served with a glass of milk, just like his childhood days. While his music pushed boundaries, his dessert stayed classic. Every bite reminded him of home, heart, and a slower rhythm of life. They weren't fancy, but they were familiar, like the voice of a trusted friend on a dusty road.
For all his lyrical mystery and ever-changing personas, Bob Dylan preferred a classic humble dessert, rice pudding dusted with cinnamon. Fans and tour mates recall that during the 1960s and 70s, Dylan often requested it backstage or in diners across America. He liked it cold, thick, not too sweet, and always with that touch of spice on top. It wasn't flashy, just comforting. Some say it reminded him of childhood or simpler days before the spotlight. Even as his lyrics changed the landscape of music, he kept this tradition close. In hotels from Greenwich Village to Nashville, a bowl of rice pudding offered quiet warmth. For a man known for restlessness, this dessert was his stillness. It didn't need reinvention. It didn't need explanation. It just needed a spoon, a pause, and maybe a napkin scribbled with lyrics. Because even legends need something soft and sweet to come home to, especially when their voice has carried the weight of generations.
Elegant to her core, Jackie Kennedy kept breakfast as refined as her fashion, poached eggs on toast with a smear of orange marmalade. While she attended galas and served in the White House, her personal meals remained minimalist and measured. Friends and chefs revealed she preferred light fare, and this particular breakfast was a staple, gentle, flavorful, and distinctly European in feel. The eggs had to be just firm enough, the toast lightly buttered, and the marmalade not too sweet.
Jackie appreciated balance in all things, from diplomacy to diet. Even on busy mornings, she made time for this ritual, often served on fine china with a linen napkin. It wasn't extravagant, but it was distinctly Jackie, graceful, composed, and quietly luxurious. Though she's remembered for her style and poise, this breakfast revealed a woman who valued small pleasures done perfectly. A meal fit not for royalty, but for someone who understood that elegance begins in the ordinary, lovingly prepared. Up next, a king of cool's greasy go-to, a country queen's guilty snack, and a late-night host whose favorite dessert kept him sharp on air. Even among silver screen royalty, Katharine Hepburn's brownies earned legendary status. Rich, fudgy, and made with pantry staples, they were famously unfussy, just like Hepburn herself. She preferred them chewy, not cakey, and kept the recipe short. Melted butter, cocoa powder, sugar, eggs, flour, vanilla, and a pinch of salt. No nuts, no extras. These brownies became her go-to for decades. Friends, co-stars, even journalists who visited her home were often sent off with a warm, wax paper-wrapped square. The recipe eventually circulated far and wide,
praised by culinary icons for its simplicity and perfection. Hepburn never claimed to be a chef, but her brownies had heart, unapologetic, bold, and just the right amount of sweet. Much like her films, they held up beautifully over time. Today, many still bake them as a tribute to her legacy. Because while her characters were sharp, her desserts were soft, and in those quiet, chocolatey corners, you could taste the human side of a Hollywood icon.
The queen of comedy, Lucille Ball, had one surprisingly specific food love: extra thin crust pepperoni pizza. While she dabbled in elegant Hollywood fare, nothing beat a hot, crispy pizza shared with friends or family. She liked the edges just shy of burnt, the cheese bubbling, and the pepperoni sliced thin and curled at the edges. No pineapple, no veggies, no deep dish. Thin and classic, just like her comedic timing. Lucille often ordered from her favorite LA pizza joints, or had her house staff replicate that perfect East Coast style. She even joked once that if she hadn't made it in television, she would have opened a pizzeria just to get the crust right. For someone known for being larger than life on screen, her food preference was refreshingly simple and specific. The kind of craving that hits late at night, when laughter has filled the room and there's nothing left to do but sit, slice in hand, and savor what's real. Which of these favorites speaks to you? Audrey's perfect pasta, Mick's bacon sandwich, or Lucy's crackling crust pizza? Drop your answer in the comments below. Sweet, classic, and unmistakably Southern, Dolly Parton's all-time favorite dessert is banana pudding layered with vanilla wafers. Her mama made it for Sunday suppers, potlucks, and holidays, and Dolly never forgot the warmth it brought to the table. The pudding had to be homemade, not instant, with sliced bananas, fluffy whipped topping, and rows of crisp wafers softened just enough to melt in your mouth. Dolly has said in interviews that she doesn't need fancy sweets, just a scoop of banana pudding, and she's happy. She's even known to bring it to cast parties or send it as a gift to friends. For Dolly, the dish isn't just about flavor, it's memory, home, and love served cold. It's a reminder that comfort doesn't come from cost, it comes from care. Like a great country song, banana pudding hits the heart and the taste buds. And when the queen of country has a craving, it usually comes with a dollop of vanilla joy on top.
While most leaders favored steak dinners or gourmet dishes, Ronald Reagan's signature snack during his presidency was jelly beans. Not just a passing fancy, he kept jars of them on Air Force One in the Oval Office and even handed them out to guests. His favorite was licorice, but he was known to pick out reds too. Reagan began munching them in the 1960s while quitting smoking and never stopped. The candy became a symbol of his sunny, approachable image. Jelly Belly created custom mixes just for him, and over 3 tons were shipped to his 1981 inauguration. They weren't just candy, they were a conversation starter, a mood lifter, a bowl of Americana in bright colors. While most people wouldn't think of jelly beans as a food, for Reagan, they were more than that. They were light-hearted moments in the midst of serious ones.
Sweet, surprising, and a little quirky. Exactly how history remembers the man who brought them into the White House. In the glamorous world of Washington and Hollywood, Nancy Reagan's favorite treat stayed refreshingly elegant: chocolate-dipped strawberries. These bite-sized indulgences were her go-to dessert at state dinners, birthday parties, and quiet evenings at home. She preferred dark chocolate, rich but not bitter, and plump strawberries chilled just before serving. During her years in the White House, pastry chefs kept them on standby for official events or as a late-night treat for the
First Lady. Nancy believed in presentation, so the strawberries were often served on silver trays with mint leaves or dustings of powdered sugar. It wasn't about quantity, it was about class. Friends said she'd have just 1 or 2, slowly, savoring the moment. The combination of decadence and freshness mirrored her public image: refined, sweet, and a little bold. Today, chocolate-dipped strawberries are often reserved for Valentine's Day, but for Nancy, they were an everyday luxury. Because sometimes, being powerful means knowing exactly when to enjoy something soft and sweet. Rebel icon James Dean had a nostalgic favorite straight from his Indiana roots: apple pie served with a slice of sharp cheddar cheese. It might sound unusual today, but this combination was a Midwestern staple, a mix of warm sweetness and salty tang that Dean adored.
He often spoke of his aunt's homemade pies, baked in cast iron with cinnamon-rich filling and flaky golden crusts. Topped with cheese instead of whipped cream, it became a flavor he craved even during his brief but blazing Hollywood career. Dean reportedly requested it on set whenever filming allowed, and he wasn't shy about pairing it with black coffee and silence. It wasn't showy, it was sincere, just like Dean himself. Apple pie with cheddar wasn't just a snack, it was a tether to home, a moment of calm between the chaos of rising fame. Even today, the dish speaks of contrasts, sweet and sharp, soft and strong, just like the man behind the legend. Coming up, a rock god's guilty pleasure, a country outlaw's sweet addiction, and a president whose favorite snack helped him think during tense negotiations.
Eclectic, mysterious, and wildly original, Prince had a food combination that left many scratching their heads: plain spaghetti and a tall glass of orange juice. According to his chefs and close collaborators, the purple icon preferred his pasta with no sauce, just noodles, maybe a sprinkle of Parmesan, and washed it down with orange juice.
It wasn't for everyone, but it was unmistakably Prince. He liked the brightness of the juice against the carb-heavy meal, claiming it helped him feel sharp before performances. In later years, he adopted healthier eating habits, but this quirky combo remained a nostalgic favorite. He often ate it in quiet moments between rehearsals or studio sessions. Fans who worked closely with him said it was as much about routine as taste, a strange but soothing ritual in a life full of genius. Just like his music, Prince's plate defied convention, but if you asked him, it was perfect, and that's all that mattered. Would you take Clint's chili, Judy's noodles, or Prince's unique pasta combo? Let us know which plate speaks to your taste or curiosity.
While Elizabeth Taylor dazzled the world with diamonds and dramatic roles, her true comfort came from a hearty bowl of chicken and dumplings. Despite her glamorous image, Liz craved this humble southern dish: fluffy dumplings nestled in a thick broth with tender chicken. It reminded her of home, warmth, and simpler times away from the cameras. She reportedly requested it often from her personal chefs, and even while filming on location, she'd seek out restaurants that could do it justice. Friends say she'd close her eyes during the first bite, savoring the nostalgia as much as the flavor. This dish, rich with herbs and slow-cooked goodness, grounded her during her whirlwind life of fame, romance, and reinvention. Chicken and dumplings wasn't just food for Elizabeth. It was a pause, a memory, and a piece of her heart on a spoon. For a woman known for excess, this dish proved her most lasting cravings were as down-to-earth as anyone's. Before she was Princess Grace of Monaco, Grace Kelly was a Hollywood star with a European soul and a love for crepe Suzette. This delicate French dessert featured paper-thin crepes flambéed tableside in orange liqueur and butter, a fitting indulgence for someone who personified grace and refinement. She often ordered it at elegant hotels in Paris and Monaco, always appreciating the theatrical flair of the flames licking the pan. At royal functions, palace chefs perfected the dish to match her tastes: subtle sweetness, fine zest, and a balanced liqueur that didn't overpower. Friends recall her smile when the crepes arrived, quiet joy, never showy. The dish, like Grace, was elegant, carefully composed, and unforgettable. Even in her final years, crepes Suzette remained a favorite indulgence, savored slowly with afternoon tea or following a formal dinner. It wasn't just dessert, it was ceremony, artistry, and a whisper of Parisian elegance, fit for a screen siren turned royalty. Next up, a soulful singer's love for pancakes, a boxer's post-fight craving, and an actress whose comfort came in layers, literally.
Bold on stage and surprisingly simple at lunch, Barbra Streisand swore by egg salad on rye. She didn't care for trends or dainty cafe meals. What she wanted? A solid sandwich, thick rye bread, slightly toasted, with egg salad that was creamy, a little tangy, and heavy on mustard. No lettuce, no tomato, no frills. She often made it herself and liked to pair it with a cold glass of milk or a dill pickle on the side. Even while recording albums or rehearsing for Broadway, she'd pause everything for her favorite sandwich. Her team recalls she'd share it generously, if it was made right. For someone known for vocal precision and dramatic glamour, her go-to meal was comfortingly ordinary. But that's what made it perfect. Egg salad on rye grounded her. It reminded her of Brooklyn diners, of childhood, of simplicity amid spotlight chaos. A true diva's lunch, not extravagant, just exact, perfectly her.
Zany, brilliant, and beloved. Robin Williams' go-to comfort food was unexpectedly simple: a big bowl of frosted flakes. Despite his explosive energy on screen, Robin found peace in the ordinary, and cold cereal gave him a sense of stability in a fast-moving world. He reportedly enjoyed it late at night after gigs or early in the morning during filming. No fancy toppings, just milk, flakes, and that sugary crunch. It was his edible nostalgia, connecting him back to childhood mornings and a sense of structure amidst his spontaneous genius.
Robin once joked that cereal kept him grounded, like a sugary little therapist in a bowl. His friends said he ate it with the same enthusiasm he brought to every character: big bites, big laughs, and lots of joy. In a world that demanded constant reinvention, Frosted Flakes were a ritual of return.
In his prime, Marlon Brando was known for more than just smoldering performances. He also had a notorious sweet tooth, especially for ice cream. Not a scoop or two, Brando was known to demolish entire tubs, especially during his later years. Rumors from film sets described him hiding pints in coolers and asking assistants to stash ice cream behind props. He loved rich, indulgent flavors: vanilla bean, butter pecan, chocolate fudge swirl. Directors like Francis Ford Coppola even joked about having to negotiate with Brando's cravings during shoots. His appetite became part of his legend. While his later lifestyle drew criticism, Brando never apologized for enjoying what he loved. Ice cream for him was rebellion and comfort wrapped in one. A moment of childlike joy in a life that often carried heavy expectations. Even The Godfather had a soft spot, and it melted into a bowl of something cold, creamy, and unashamedly human. Whose favorite treat would you dive into first? Miles's chili, Hepburn's brownies,
Or Brando's ice cream stash? Drop your pick and tell us why in the comments. Before capes and cameras, Christopher Reeve was a college student who lived off peanut butter and banana sandwiches. Even after becoming Superman, this humble combo stayed a go-to. He liked the bananas ripe but not mushy, the bread soft, and the peanut butter chunky. No jelly, no toasting, just pure nostalgic fuel. Reeve once said it was the perfect food: balanced, affordable, and filling without weighing you down. He ate it backstage during long rehearsals and even brought it to interviews. After his accident, his diet changed, but friends noted how often he talked about those simple sandwiches, missing the freedom of making and enjoying one without help. The sandwich wasn't just sustenance, it was a connection to his earlier life, his strength, and his sense of independence. For a man known for playing the strongest hero of all, his favorite food was soft, sweet, and human. Just like the real hero he truly was. Jazz legend Miles Davis loved his food like his music: bold, layered, and full of heat. His favorite? A homemade chili that packed a serious punch. Known for being fiercely private and fiercely particular, Miles often cooked for himself and close friends, especially during his quieter years. His chili included ground beef, kidney beans, diced tomatoes, hot peppers, onions, and a touch of coffee for depth. It wasn't refined, but it had soul. Musicians who jammed with him say the pot was always simmering when you visited, and you didn't dare complain about the spice. He'd ladle it out with cornbread and say, "This'll wake you up." It was more than a meal. It was mood, atmosphere, rhythm. Just like his trumpet lines, Miles's chili reflected his life. Intense, creative, sometimes overwhelming, but unforgettable. Every bite was a note. Every bowl a jam session. And if you were lucky enough to try it, you tasted a little of the man behind the music. When it came to food, Frank Sinatra didn't settle. He savored. And nothing hit the spot for old Blue Eyes quite like veal Milanese, a crispy breaded cutlet topped with lemon wedges and served with arugula or pasta. Sinatra loved the classic Italian-American experience, often dining at his favorite haunts in Hoboken, New York, or Las Vegas, where waiters knew his exact order. His version of the dish was thin, golden brown, and pan-fried in olive oil with garlic, not deep-fried.
It wasn't just the flavor, it was the ritual. Good bread, good wine, good conversation. Frank reportedly rated restaurants by their veal Milanese, and if it wasn't up to par, he'd let them know.
This dish was comfort, class, and old-world charm all at once, just like the man himself. It reminded him of home, heritage, and all the elegant grit of the East Coast. In every forkful was a tune, a memory, and a toast to La Dolce Vita.
While known for his acting, racing, and philanthropic food empire, Paul Newman had a famously low-maintenance favorite, a cheeseburger with pickles, nothing else. No lettuce, no onions, no fancy sauces, just beef, melted American cheese, and a couple of dill slices. Friends say he ordered it the same way for decades, whether at diners or on movie sets. For Newman, it was all about honest flavor and simplicity. He enjoyed grilling them himself too, often at his Connecticut home, flipping burgers with one hand and sipping a cold beer with the other. His children remembered these cookouts as moments when their dad was most relaxed, most real. While Newman later became synonymous with gourmet salad dressings and organic foods, his personal go-to remained humble. That bare-bones burger reflected his philosophy. Do things with purpose, don't overcomplicate, and enjoy what you love, even if it's just a cheeseburger and a smile. Sometimes, less truly is more.
In between electrifying performances and whirlwind interviews, Robin Williams found calm in the ultimate comfort combo: grilled cheese and tomato soup. Crispy golden bread with gooey cheddar inside, dunked into warm, slightly sweet tomato soup. It was his childhood in a bowl and on a plate. Robin often talked about how this meal reminded him of rainy days, Saturday cartoons, and his mother's kitchen. It became his go-to in hotels or on movie sets, where chefs quickly learned to get the ratio just right. Crunchy outside, melty inside, soup never too thin. For a man whose mind moved a mile a minute, this meal brought him stillness. It wasn't about calories or gourmet status. It was about joy, safety, and a full-body sigh after a long day of making others laugh. Grilled cheese and tomato soup was Robin's edible exhale, simple, nostalgic, and deeply human, just like the man who never stopped giving us reasons to smile.
Gruff, no nonsense, and unapologetically American. Clint Eastwood's favorite meal mirrored his on-screen persona, chili con carne. Loaded with ground beef, kidney beans, tomatoes, and a healthy dose of heat, it was a dish he requested often while directing or acting. Eastwood, ever the minimalist, liked his chili straight. No sugar, no fancy toppings, just spice, meat, and muscle. He often made it himself in bulk, storing leftovers for long days on set. Cast and crew joked that if you could handle Clint's chili, you earned his respect. He credited the hearty stew with helping him stay energized through long filming schedules, especially during his westerns and action roles. It was also a nod to his California upbringing and love of bold southwestern flavors. Whether served from a campfire pot or a stovetop in Carmel, chili was Eastwood's edible signature. Strong, timeless, and a little dangerous. Just like the man with no name.
Even at the height of Beatlemania, Paul McCartney kept his comfort food simple: mashed potatoes with onion gravy. Before he was a rock legend, he was just a Liverpool lad raised on classic English fare. Mashed potatoes, creamy, buttery, fluffy, reminded him of home, especially when served with slow-cooked onion gravy, rich in flavor and memories.
Paul has shared that it was one of the first dishes he learned to make for himself after his mother passed away. It became a source of comfort during tours and long recording nights. Even after becoming a vegetarian, he adapted the recipe to fit his lifestyle, making plant-based versions that still captured the essence of his childhood kitchen. Bandmates joked that no matter where they traveled, India, Japan, the US, Paul would seek out something close to his favorite side dish. It wasn't glamorous, but for him it was grounding. Just like a good melody, it was warm, honest, and stuck with you forever.
Vibrant, dramatic, and unforgettable. Freddie Mercury's favorite food was chicken dansak, a spicy Parsi dish blending lentils, vegetables, and marinated meat. Growing up in a Parsi household in Zanzibar and later India, Freddie carried this traditional meal with him into rock stardom. Dansak was often served on Sundays in his home and became his go-to comfort food, even as Queen topped global charts. His former chef, Joe Finelli, once said Freddie insisted on having dansak after every tour ended. It symbolized a return to self. The dish, a mix of hot, sweet, and sour, reflected Freddie's own layered personality. With its warm spices and slow-cooked flavors, it was more than a meal. It was memory, culture, and love. Despite lavish backstage spreads and fancy hotel menus, Mercury found his culinary peace in this Parsi favorite. A plate of dansak, served with brown rice and quiet, was as grounding as any note he ever hit on stage.
Good, raw, and real. Johnny Cash's favorite breakfast was biscuits with black coffee, served hot and no frills. He grew up during the Great Depression in rural Arkansas, where mornings started with simple, hearty meals. That never changed. Even during tours, he'd ask for flaky biscuits, no gravy, a side of jam or honey, and a big mug of black coffee. No cream, no sugar.
It wasn't about indulgence, it was about familiarity. The scent of coffee and bread reminded him of early mornings on the farm, gospel songs drifting through open windows, and the rhythm of honest work. June Carter Cash often made it for him herself, even on the road. The man in black didn't need fancy, he needed tradition. Those biscuits were more than food, they were faith, family, and foundation. In every bite, he tasted where he came from, and in every cup of coffee, he found the clarity to face the next song, the next show, the next sunrise. Graceful and timeless, Audrey Hepburn's favorite dish was as elegant as she was: spaghetti al pomodoro. Despite her European upbringing and glamorous Hollywood life, Audrey remained devoted to this simple Italian meal: thin spaghetti tossed in a light tomato sauce with garlic, olive oil, basil, and a dusting of Parmesan. It wasn't just a comfort food, it was a ritual. She often cooked it herself, even at the height of her fame, and continued to enjoy it during her humanitarian work later in life. In interviews, she credited the dish with grounding her, reminding her of peaceful moments in Rome and home-cooked dinners with her sons. Audrey believed in beauty through simplicity, and her food philosophy echoed her fashion: timeless, uncluttered, and full of love. Spaghetti al pomodoro wasn't just a meal. It was her way of keeping joy and balance on the plate. In a world that idolized her perfection, this dish showed her heart: warm, approachable, and forever real. Iconic and endlessly imitated, Marilyn Monroe had a famously sweet tooth, especially for a hot fudge sundae piled high with whipped cream and cherries. Despite her carefully crafted Hollywood image and intense diets, Marilyn often indulged in classic American desserts, and sundaes were at the top of her list. She'd order them during late-night outings, or request them at home with extra fudge and just a little vanilla ice cream. She never liked it too cold. Friends said she enjoyed eating them slowly, as if trying to freeze time itself. It was a rare moment when she could be playful and childlike, away from cameras and chaos. In a world obsessed with her curves and charisma, this dessert let her be soft and silly. A cherry-topped sundae may seem ordinary, but for Marilyn, it was a small rebellion. Sweet, rich, and unforgettable, just like her, because behind every icon is someone who still smiles over a melting scoop of joy. He unraveled the secrets of the universe, but when it came to breakfast, Albert Einstein liked to keep things astonishingly simple: soft-boiled eggs with toast soldiers. Served in a small egg cup with slender slices of toasted bread, this modest dish was a morning ritual he rarely strayed from. He preferred his eggs slightly runny, seasoned with a pinch of salt, and eaten slowly while reading or thinking quietly. During his Princeton years, Einstein often asked staff to prepare this exact breakfast, enjoying the routine and calm it offered before a day of mental fireworks. For a man whose thoughts changed time itself, this simple act grounded him. It reminded him that not everything brilliant needs to be complicated. Some of the best things in life, like ideas, like eggs, work best when they're allowed to unfold naturally. The toast may have been soft, graceful, stylish, and adored the world over, Audrey Hepburn's favorite dish was remarkably simple: spaghetti al pomodoro. She discovered this love while living in Rome, where she embraced the Italian way of cooking: fresh, clean, and heartfelt. Her recipe included ripe tomatoes, garlic, basil, olive oil, and just the right amount of Parmesan. It wasn't fancy, it wasn't extravagant, it was pure.
Audrey often cooked it herself, even when busy filming or raising her children. In her later years, she was known to make this pasta weekly in her Swiss home, savoring every bite like it was the first. To her, food was about nurturing the body and soul. It reminded her of post-war simplicity, where food was scarce, but every meal was cherished. While the world saw her as a fashion icon, at the table, Audrey was just a mother, a daughter, a woman who loved tomatoes, pasta, and quiet joy. Smooth, strong, and endlessly warm, Ella Fitzgerald's voice wasn't the only thing that brought comfort. Her favorite breakfast? Buttermilk pancakes with maple syrup. Big, fluffy stacks with golden edges, dripping with butter and sweetness, were her post-performance treat or lazy Sunday indulgence.
Ella preferred hers with real maple syrup, a pat of butter melting into the folds, and sometimes a side of crispy bacon. Tour chefs knew this was her go-to meal after a long night on stage, when adrenaline dropped and comfort food called. She said pancakes reminded her of childhood mornings in Virginia, full of music, mischief, and motherly love. Fans may have swooned over her vocals, but her heart stayed grounded in kitchen tables and simple joys. Her pancakes were more than breakfast. They were soft, soulful hugs on a plate. Whether in jazz clubs or five-star hotels, Ella never lost her appetite for sweetness, because every note, like every pancake,
Was better when made with love.
When it came to food, President John F. Kennedy never strayed far from his roots, especially when it came to New England clam chowder. Born in Brookline, Massachusetts, JFK loved the creamy, briny soup filled with clams, potatoes, onions, and cream. It was his favorite dish both before and during his presidency. The White House kitchen kept it on standby, and it was often served at state dinners and informal gatherings alike. Staff noted that he preferred it served hot, with oyster crackers and not overly thick. Simple, just like he remembered from summers on Cape Cod. In times of tension or stress, a bowl of chowder brought comfort and familiarity. JFK once joked that it was the one food that could keep a man steady through any storm. While policies changed and history moved forward, this dish remained a warm link to family, tradition, and the Atlantic breeze of his childhood. Even presidents, it seems, have their favorite kind of calm. Which classic dish would you share with its famous fan? Willie's cookies, Audrey's pasta, or JFK's chowder? Let us know which one you'd sit down for and why. The king of USO tours and television specials, Bob Hope had a food favorite that matched his all-American appeal: chicken pot pie. He loved its flaky crust, creamy filling, and the nostalgic blend of vegetables and roasted chicken. Whether backstage or at home in Toluca Lake, Bob frequently requested the dish, especially before live performances.
He said it gave him fuel and focus. His wife Dolores often made it from scratch, layering the buttery dough and seasoning it just the way he liked. Peppery, never bland. During his many world travels, Bob would still compare meals to that signature pie from home. Not bad, he'd joke after a gourmet dinner, but it's no chicken pot pie. The dish wasn't fancy, but it was hearty and reassuring, just like his humor. In a career built on making others feel at ease, it makes sense his go-to meal did the same. Warm, classic, and dependable, just like Bob himself.
The quietest Beatle found his loudest flavors in vegetable curry. After embracing Indian spirituality and vegetarianism in the mid-1960s, George Harrison grew deeply fond of Indian cuisine, especially home-cooked curries rich with turmeric, cumin, coriander, and seasonal vegetables.
He enjoyed preparing them himself, often cooking for friends at Friar Park, his estate in England. His favorite was a tomato-based curry filled with cauliflower, potatoes, and peas, served with basmati rice and chapatis. Harrison believed food had energy and karma. It wasn't just taste, but intention. Meals were shared over laughter, music, and meditation. While others chased fame and fine dining, George preferred the warmth of a hand-stirred pot and the company of thoughtful conversation. His curries weren't Michelin-starred, but they were full of depth, just like his music. Beauty icon, acting legend, and proud Italian, Sophia Loren's favorite dish was minestrone soup, robust, rustic, and homemade. She often said, "Everything you see, I owe to spaghetti." But it was minestrone that truly stole her heart. Loaded with seasonal vegetables, beans, herbs, and pasta or rice, it was the centerpiece of her childhood table in Naples. She continued making it for her family throughout her career, preferring to cook it herself whenever possible. No shortcuts, no canned broth, just patience, fresh produce, and love. Her version varied with the seasons, sometimes adding zucchini blossoms or crusty stale bread stirred into the broth. She viewed it not just as a meal, but a ritual, a way to slow down and nourish more than just the body. Royalty with an American soul, Grace Kelly's favorite dish was quiche Lorraine, a savory French tart filled with eggs, cream, bacon, and cheese. Before becoming Princess of Monaco, she enjoyed quiche in New York and Paris, falling in love with its rich but balanced flavor. After marrying Prince Rainier, she continued to request it for brunches and private meals in the palace. The dish struck a perfect harmony between her old life and her new one, simple yet elegant, comforting yet refined. Grace often paired it with a small green salad and mineral water, enjoying it in quiet corners away from royal duties. For a woman constantly in the spotlight, quiche was her soft landing, warm, golden, and satisfying. Today, it's easy to picture her, gloved hands removed, crown off, savoring a bite of buttery crust and creamy filling. In that moment, she wasn't a movie star or a monarch. She was just Grace with a fork and a smile.
Scottish pride ran deep in Sean Connery, and his favorite dish reflected just that. Haggis served with neeps and tatties, turnips and potatoes. As James Bond, he ordered martinis and dined on caviar. But at home, he wanted the national dish of Scotland, rich, earthy, and steeped in tradition. Connery often spoke of enjoying haggis during family celebrations and Burns night suppers. He preferred it served hot with a splash of whiskey on the side, surrounded by mashed root vegetables and piping hot gravy. Though haggis might raise eyebrows internationally, for Connery, it was home on a plate. It reminded him of his humble beginnings in Edinburgh and the strength of Scottish heritage.
He believed in honoring where you came from, and food was a major part of that. Even after decades in Hollywood, the Bond icon never gave up his connection to Scotland's boldest flavors. Haggis, like Connery, was hearty, unapologetic, and unmistakably unforgettable. Known for her grace and poise, Jackie Onassis had a soft spot for a surprisingly bold dessert, baked Alaska. This show-stopping treat, cake topped with ice cream and encased in toasted meringue, was her favorite at state dinners and elegant events. It wasn't just the taste, but the drama of its presentation. Torched to perfection, soft inside, with crisp caramelized peaks. Jackie appreciated the beauty in small details, and baked Alaska offered layers of surprise and delight. White House chefs noted how she'd specifically request it for guests who had never seen it before. At home, she occasionally indulged in a simplified version, but it always had to be served cold, with perfectly browned meringue. For a woman who lived much of her life in the public eye, desserts were a private joy, and this one represented celebration, elegance, and a little magic. Like Jackie herself, baked Alaska was timeless, carefully crafted, and left a lasting impression long after the last bite. In and out of the ring, Muhammad Ali had a soft spot for a classic Southern treat, sweet potato pie. While training took him across the globe, home was always Kentucky, and pie was always the way to his heart. Friends and family recall how Ali would light up when someone baked one just right. Silky filling, warm spices, flaky crust, and topped with whipped cream. It reminded him of holidays, of Mama's kitchen, and of rest days when life wasn't all jabs and jump ropes. During his boxing prime in the 1960s and 70s, trainers tried to keep his diet lean, but Ali always made room for a slice, especially after a win. The champ didn't need gold-plated meals. He needed soul food, and for Ali, sweet potato pie was as comforting as a crowd chanting his name. Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. But when it came to dessert, Ali just wanted a slice of home. Coming up, a pop star's breakfast obsession, a talk show titan's guilty pleasure, and a sci-fi captain who always craved something sweet after saving the galaxy. Mysterious, reclusive, and elegant, Greta Garbo kept her diet as simple as her life became after fame: vegetable soup with rye bread. After retiring from film in her 30s, Garbo lived quietly in New York City, taking long walks, reading, and keeping to herself.
But she had one near-daily ritual: sipping warm vegetable soup made with leeks, carrots, potatoes, and herbs, often paired with dense slices of Scandinavian rye. She believed in clean eating long before it was trendy, favoring simplicity and balance. Locals sometimes spotted her eating alone at quiet cafes, her soup steaming in front of her, a scarf loosely tied at her neck.
To Garbo, food wasn't for display. It was for comfort, health, and solitude.
Classic, hearty, and undeniably British, Michael Caine swore by the full English breakfast. Even during Hollywood shoots, the London-born actor requested this morning meal: eggs, bacon, sausage, baked beans, grilled tomatoes, mushrooms, and toast. Sometimes even black pudding, depending on where he was filming. For Caine, it wasn't just breakfast, it was identity. Raised in working-class England, the full English was a symbol of energy and endurance, something you could rely on before a long day of work, or acting. He often spoke fondly of enjoying it in quiet cafes or bustling pubs before fame found him. As an international star, he kept that ritual alive, even when filming abroad. Colleagues recall him politely requesting a proper fry-up no matter the location. He didn't want trends, he wanted tradition. The full English wasn't fancy, but it was his flag on a plate, bold, grounded, and unmistakably British. Just like the man who never forgot where he came from.
Amid his high-tech legacy, Steve Jobs had some very earthy preferences, most notably his love for raw carrot and apple salad. A known fruitarian in his early life, Jobs went through long stretches where he consumed only fruit, nuts, and raw vegetables. One of his mainstays during Apple's early boom was a simple grated salad. Raw carrots, crisp apples, a squeeze of lemon juice, and occasionally a handful of raisins or almonds. He believed this clean, raw combination helped him stay mentally sharp and physically light. It wasn't a gourmet meal, but that wasn't the point. He often brought it with him to work, even during major product development phases. Staff say he could be seen crunching away while sketching ideas or reviewing prototypes. For a man obsessed with clarity and minimalism, this dish made perfect sense. No fluff, no filler, just pure, clean fuel. It wasn't just a snack, it was a philosophy on a plate. Next up, a queen of comedy's childhood favorite, a jazz genius's midnight indulgence, and a cinematic legend who swore by breakfast for dinner. As the 39th president and a lifelong Georgian, Jimmy Carter's snack of choice remained as Southern as his accent: boiled peanuts. Soft, salty, and served warm, these earthy treats were a favorite from his childhood on a peanut farm. Even after reaching the Oval Office, Carter often kept small paper bags of them in the White House kitchen or tucked into his jacket pocket while campaigning. He preferred them plain, no spices, just gently simmered in salted water until they split easily in your hand. Staff joked that he could eat them by the handful, especially when deep in thought. For Carter, boiled peanuts were more than a snack. They were a symbol of roots, resilience, and the land that raised him. Even decades later, he'd bring them to global conferences or family picnics alike. Humble and unprocessed, they reflected a president who always stayed close to his soil. In every soft shell was a story, a memory, and a quiet kind of pride.
Rebel, icon, and symbol of youthful cool, James Dean had a soft spot for an old-school dessert: apple pie a la mode. Long before he became a screen legend, Dean would order this classic treat from roadside diners during his travels between New York and LA. He liked his pie warm, the crust flaky and slightly crisp, the apples spiced and slightly tart, and always topped with a big scoop of vanilla ice cream. Friends and fellow actors say he would eat it slowly, savoring every bite while discussing life, acting, or whatever he was reading that week. For a man known for speed, fast cars, fast rise to fame, this dessert was a rare pause. A reminder that behind the leather jacket and brooding eyes was a small-town Indiana boy who just wanted something sweet and simple at the end of the day. Apple pie a la mode wasn't just dessert for Dean. It was home, comfort, and Americana in every bite. With access to the world's finest foods, Oprah Winfrey still chooses one dish above most: truffle mac and cheese. Creamy, decadent, and just slightly earthy from black truffle oil, it's a blend of comfort and luxury, just like Oprah herself.
During her talk show years and beyond, she frequently mentioned mac and cheese as her ultimate guilty pleasure.
but leave it to Oprah to elevate the dish. Her version includes sharp cheddar, Gruyere, a hint of nutmeg, and a whisper of truffle essence, baked until golden. She's been known to serve it at holiday parties and special events where guests line up for seconds. It's warm, rich, and nostalgic, yet sophisticated enough for fine dining. Oprah has said it reminds her of her grandmother's cooking, reimagined through the lens of everything she's learned along the way. It's food for the soul, but dressed up for success. Just like her life story, rooted in struggle, flavored with triumph. Would you rather share Dolly's cornbread, Ali's pie, or Oprah's truffle mac? Which soulful dish speaks to your roots or dreams? Let us know in the comments.
Late night legend. Johnny Carson had a surprising sweet tooth for a refined treat, chocolate-dipped orange peels. While millions laughed along to his monologues, Johnny often ended his own nights with this bittersweet delicacy. Staff at NBC and longtime friends remembered bowls of these candies in his dressing room, zesty citrus rinds candied until tender, then dipped in dark chocolate. They were rich without being overwhelming, and offered a sophisticated bite of contrast, just like Johnny's humor. He wasn't much for cakes or heavy desserts, but these? He'd nibble during rehearsals, take a few home, or gift them to guests. Over time, they became something of a signature, unusual, sharp, and quietly luxurious.
Johnny Carson didn't need to be loud about what he liked. He simply reached for it, night after night. In a world of flashy fame and fast punchlines, chocolate-dipped orange peels were his quiet ritual. Clever, smooth, and just a little bit unexpected. If these 1970s luxuries reminded you of a world long gone, drop a comment. Hit like to bring them back to life, and subscribe for a seat at the next retro table.